everybody, welcome to a new video series. So I'm planning to do a little bit of some insights into sound design and also try to combine that with a little bit of a jam at the end. So I have today my ms-20 in front of me. This puppy is a little bit hard to film because it tends to be really hard to get a good focus on the camera, on the dials and knobs and stuff like that, so apologies for that in advance. Hopefully you will be able to see what's going on over here by the knobs and buttons and whatnot. So I wanted to show you guys one of my favorite standard sounds that I do. I'm using sawtooth waveforms on both oscillator 1 and oscillator 2 and combining these into what I like to call my designated solo or pad bass sound, right? So it's basically just a sawtooth over here. I have an oscillator 1 sawtooth and oscillator 2 also sawtooth, and then what I do is just mix them up. So this is V01, which you can hear right now. Blending in number 2 here, got the first one on 32 and the second one on 16 foot. So basically just giving the second one, a higher one, putting that a little bit lower than VCO1. Okay, and also at the same time, what you should always do this, to tune the oscillators a little bit, to give that a little bit of a wiggly kind of movement going on. And you do that with the pitch over here. So right away it becomes way much fatter, right? Yeah, that's awesome. All right, and also adding to this, let me just tell you what's going on here before I continue too much. Everything is more or less put to 0. Except of course the tuning and stuff like that, but envelopes and everything, right now I have attack on 0, I have decay on full, sustain on full, release on 0, and everything else on 0. I have the envelope generator 1 on 0, and I have the frequency obviously running a little bit here, but that's not turned on anywhere right now, so you won't be able to hear it. And also no resonance going on here and no high pass filter. So that's my startup sound. Okay, so continuing with the sound. I want to add a little bit of frequency modulation to the oscillators. I'm doing that by just selecting MGT external here, this one, this guy. And over here you have the waveform. I want to do like a triangle waveform, and I will pull down the frequency, and you can see that the only pulsating LED on the ms-20. Dial that back a little bit. Something like that. That's nice. Maybe a little bit too much. Just a little bit too much. Yeah, that's awesome. And really, there isn't really that much more to it, because 2 sawtooths, a little bit of detuning, a little bit of frequency modulation. The important thing when you're playing is to use the cutoff knob, right, to give it a little bit more dynamic. And some people like to use an LFO to get that moving, but personally I like to use that as an expressive feature on the synth, right, to give it Some of you guys might, like to use this little pitch wheel over here. Obviously, that's also an option. You can just select that, take that out from the pitch, and put that into your low pass filter over here. You will have to enable the wheel, and you do that by selecting cutoff frequency modulation, and you have the EG2 external, this one, right? And you can just pull this puppy up a little bit. Okay, so normally when working with the ms-20, it's really nice to have some delay. So over here, the carbon delay algorithm in the Zoom ms-20 is something that works pretty well with the ms-20. Right, you would think that since they have the same name almost. It's a little bit too short, so let's go in and edit that one. Turn up the mix a little bit. There you go. A little bit more feedback too. What else do we have over here? Let's have a look. A little bit of modulation as well is always nice to have on your delays to give it a little bit of movement on the tail. So this one is turned up to. Let's pull down the speed a little bit and give it a little bit more width. That's good, right? And that's it on the delay. On top of this, obviously, you want to have a little bit of reverb. So let's turn off the delay first and go to the second one where I selected the algorithm called Space Hole. So I do believe that this is, modeled from the Eventide Space Pedal, if I'm not mistaken. So let's see what this. Oh my gosh. So it's a bit messy. So the ms-20, at least the leads that I do, I kind of like to have the responses being a little bit more gloomier and darker. As you can hear, this one is pretty, bright. Metallic for my taste. I'm just going to go to the page here where we have the EQ and pull down the highs a little bit. Let's take it down to -68 or something like that. Much better. Okay, let's turn up the size a little bit and go to the decay, pull that up, and also raise the mix a little bit. Sound pretty nice. So let's go back to delay and turn that on. Maybe a little bit longer time. There you go. And turn on the reverb on top. thing I hear quite often about the ms-20, it has, you know, it's a little bit noisy, puffs and, you know, stuff like that when you're playing it. And in my opinion, that is kind of, you know, what gives the ms-20 a little bit of its character. So what I like to do is to add a little bit of white noise and just sending that out through the external signal, because the noise gives it a little bit more creaminess. If you just pull it up a little bit at the bottom, right, when you push up the cutoff, you will get this creamy feeling. So let me just demonstrate. The first filter sweep I'm going to do without the noise, and the second one with, and you can hear the difference yourselves. Okay. Yeah, that's nice. All right, and a little bit of noise on top. Right, but let's turn off the effects. There's one more thing that I think is really cool with the ms-20, because you have two filters, right? You have the low pass and then you have the high pass. Now the high pass is pretty boring if you just turn it on like this, when it just cuts all the, you know, low end, right? But the beauty with this one is that you have a resonant section of the high pass. I'm adding that. And let's put maybe 6 or 7 or something like that on top. You get these really cool sounds. The good thing is that you can have the resonance turned up like 6 or 7-ish, and you can just fiddle around, you know. Turn off the noise. Whenever you're ready, right, when you have the filter open on the low pass, and just switch to the high pass. It's a really cool creative control over the tone when playing solos. Okay, so let's also look into one of my favorite tips and tricks. Adding on top here is to use a looper pedal to create, when I'm doing jams and stuff like that, to create a little bit of a background loop that can you use in your jam sessions, and you can play against that if you put in notes in a specific scale. So we're just gonna do a C minor in this particular instance and add some notes on top. And what I usually like to do is to be a little bit more mellow on the filter, because you want to have these sounds in the background and maybe change the character of the sound just a little bit, so it doesn't sound like the previous one that you had. So what I'm gonna do here is just give it a little bit of release, and we're gonna do 8 foot and 4 foot like this, and just give it a go. C minor. Make it random, right? Should do it. And it will just play whatever stuff that I recorded. Now, the good thing with this little Ditto X2 looper from TC Electronics is that it has some effects built in. You can do whatever you have recorded in reverse or half the speed. And what I like to do is always just go reverse on the stuff that I do for my background loops, like this. That's really cool. And pull down the volume a little bit. Let's turn on some reverb and delay and see what that sounds like. That's really cool. So right now we have a vanilla sound, we got the bass. And then we can use the filter, high pass, to add and or change the timbre of the sound. Also by changing scale octaves, you can do different types of characters, maybe having a lower 32, 4 or 2 or something like that. So for a jam session, you actually have a lot of different styles you can work on instantaneously on the ms-20 without really having to store presets and stuff like that you do in other synths, right? And you can also change the waves if you want to, wave shape, and just fiddle around with those when you're jamming. So I don't know, basically this is kind of the things that I wanted to show you guys. And also adding on top of this, I'm planning to do a little bit of a jam with the sounds that I've just created, the delay and reverb, and also the loop, and also with this setup of the ms-20. That will be in a different video, maybe, or it could be in the end of this one. I haven't decided yet, but whatever. So thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. And if you like what I do, please support me on Patreon. Because if you do that, I will have the opportunity and possibility to create more lovely and creamy synth sounds for you guys, right? Thank you. Next up, the video.